All right, Sinen, one of the things that most encouraged you is you wrote a sermon on this thing.
Yeah, I was just moved by God's heart for those who are sort of outcasts and not naturally His. Encouraged me because I don't deserve His grace. So that spoke to me in my preparation.
Okay. Eric?
I was encouraged that preaching the gospel is worthwhile.
I was encouraged by the personalizing the passage, saying, "Hey, we're foreigners, so there's no Jews here. So God
Yep.
fulfill His promises, and overall, we are in." And I felt like Jethro, But
Yep.
yeah, I know the good news, so I felt in.
Sure.
So I like that.
Nathan?
Yeah, you said this line, knowledge of world, not word, lessens your witness.
Yep.
And it's just an encouragement to, it could be a struggle to be in conversations.
Yep.
You're like, I don't know what you're talking about because it's something that I've never seen. And so it's like, but what's really important. So it was helpful.
Thanks, brother. The word. I was encouraged likewise, similar to Josue, when you told us to look around. God has kept His promises to us, and being able to look backwards, see He's been faithful to keep His promise, and to look forwards to Revelation, what we're moving towards. So I was encouraged by that. Thank you.
Wes?
Yeah, I was encouraged. You were calling us to, by the power of the Holy Spirit, to proclaim the gospel, teach our people to grow in the knowledge of God, and in that you said, so that implies the need for prayer, and we need to pray. And what do you pray for as you preach? And you gave an example of that simple but powerful prayer.
Alexis?
I was encouraged to keep hearing and keep preaching. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was encouraged that from the very beginning you said right after you stated your main point, is this not true of us, right? And more of us can accept, and then can't this be true of anybody who ever hears us? But from the very beginning I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. So you get encouraged to preach, continue preaching. What do you think you maybe tried, but bombed at?
Yeah, I was trying to a lot of things. So sort of I've got an argument that's not really my main points, but my main points are kind of showing you the big how.
Yeah.
So I was kind of wrestling with that as I was working through, so that I'm not arguing two different things. That was a struggle as I was working.
All right, Eric?
There's one point that I think you had a sanctified imagination.
Yeah.
And that was when you put the words in Jethro's mouth. I was worried sick. He might have been.
Right.
He probably was, but does it? I think you could have done it so long as you said he was probably, or wouldn't it be normal if he was worried sick or something? I don't know. But
Yeah.
I just didn't think it was
I
necessary.
did, in my notes, I just didn't say that.
Okay.
I did say he may have,
Okay.
but I remember I said it as if he was thinking it.
Right.
That's a good point, yeah.
Okay.
I think your gospel connection was good, but you could finish it a better way.
Right.
Because you're talking about this soldier, and you just touched the aspect of hearing, but you didn't talk about how he served or learned.
Yeah.
So it would be better to conclude the 3 points you were teaching.
Okay, David?
Yeah, one thing that I was just a little confused on was nitpicky, but when Jethro and Moses, you're talking about the relationship that they had and how close they were, and he says, so I saw that relationship and you made that clear, but I was wondering what purpose that had, and if that was, because I was like, so should I be close to the people that I'm witnessing to, or what. But I don't know if you went all the way or if I just missed it.
Yeah, that's
So-
good.
Baxter.
Similarly, the lost art of male-on-male affection.
Yeah,
Something
yeah,
I
yeah.
agree with. Something I did not see how it
Let's
connected.
do it.
I didn't see how it connected. How you.
To
Leverage that.
yeah.
And so in that, yeah. What are we to make? I thought maybe there was an application coming out because you even used an illustration.
Yeah.
Part.
Yeah,
And
that
then it never.
the
really,
intent was to ground it, but it was so I developed that quite extensively yesterday, but because of time, I just said, oh man, I went through the. You know, when you go through the text, but you've forgotten that actually there's some application you need to.
Yeah.
That's what happened. So that's good points, guys. Thank you.
Wes.
Yeah, just with the conclusion, I mean, I was really encouraging, like, I was really encouraged in your conclusion, you know, God loves the foreigner, and God's promise to Abraham of all nations, and going
Mhm,
to the
mhm.
multitude of all nations, and then, so it was kind of building up, and then the soldier Japan thing, I just got lost in.
Yeah, that was deliberate. So I did want to end with a warning note.
Yeah.
So whether it encouraged, I think I did enough to encourage you, but you know, my intention was to end with a warning.
Okay. Alexis.
Yeah, well, when you talk about, you couldn't miss it, and you use Obama as an illustration, I would say how useful it would be to ground it on the context.
Right,
Where is
right.
it that happened, just go to the, chapter 12 or chapter 15.
Yeah.
In crossing the Rasa.
Yep.
Just grounding the context, you will make that point too, so.
Sure.
Another thing is, I'm not sure,
Well, you get a second one. We'll go back around to you, round two.
oh, so
Yeah, we're gonna do this again. Yeah. You get another chance to smack him. Okay, so here's my main problem with your closing illustration. It wasn't good news that his country lost to the
Right.
Allied
Yeah, sorry,
powers.
that was conflating of that's not reading your notes.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's
So
no
I agree
way
with that,
that's good
yeah.
news. So the illustration, like, there's a powerful illustration for a lot of things. I don't know if it's the most powerful illustration for this.
So I'd written momentous news, but in the speaking, because I'm lifted up my notes, I'm saying good news.
Yeah,
That's
it is momentous for
yeah.
sure.
But it totally, I was like so confused.
yeah. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay. Eric?
So, your first critique of yourself was the main one. I thought your outline
Yeah.
was so strong.
Yeah.
And I didn't see how the main point was weaving through it. So you studied the text, but I think the question is, do you try to then change sort of the main point slightly to fit within the homiletical outline? I don't know,
Yeah.
it's your call.
Yeah.
but-
So my big thing was so when I launched into the points, I said how, and then I gave you the steps, and I tried at the end of each point to say, well, this is how acceptance of adoration comes in, but it just needed to be repeated a little bit more, the way I see it. But I did wrestle with, oh man, could they hear me arguing two different things?
It wasn't like two different things.
Right.
It's almost like they ran next to each
Right,
other.
right.
And then they weren't driving.
They're driving in
the
that
same
one thing, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm gonna give you a suggestion on the relationship thing. I was thinking because it was funny and it's true, all the things that you were saying about your friend and meeting him, how Jethro met Moses. I was thinking, this is part actually of what is happening. So relationship brings, because you were talking about learn. So relationship brings the opportunity to
Yeah, that's good.
connect and
That's good.
teach.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Jethro was hearing Moses as well. He knew the good news, right? But he heard Moses because of the relationship. So that could be probably a good
To make it
way
stronger,
to
yeah.
connect the argument you did there.
Okay. Good. Nathan?
So, the other thing I had was whenever you reference other passages outside of this, you said it and I didn't hear it, and then you used them. Like, they weren't huge, and I know you're trying to, just reference them really quick, but I always missed every single time the reference. So,
Yeah, that was deliberate
okay.
because I'm trying to lessen that work.
Okay.
So that's a positive from my side, because my tradition is to tell you where
Mm.
exactly and to name all of them.
Oh.
So I'm trying to do less of that, just by saying a sentence that kind of flows.
Yeah.
So for better or for worse.
Yeah, I mean, just like living, when I hear living sacrifices, I kind of know where that's at
Yeah,
for just
yeah,
a normal
yeah.
church here.
Yeah.
Oh, did I not say Romans 12?
No, you probably did, but you said them
I-
really quick.
Oh,
or I
right,
wasn't paying
okay,
attention
okay.
or something.
Sorry,
Every
sorry,
single
yeah.
one I missed,
Okay,
though, so
yeah, okay.
it might have just been me.
Okay.
So the second point, a question I had that I didn't feel like was answered was, and a lot was made of this teaching and this turned into preaching, but
Yep.
hasn't Jethro already heard all, he hasn't heard it from Moses, but in verse 1 we're told that he's heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was just wondering the whole time, like, is this just one point in there's a relationship attached at the end with Moses retelling, but I felt like a little bit unsatisfied with Moses told Jethro, and then it turned into like, this is what learning is, this is what teaching or preaching is. It felt like, for me, like a big jump
Right,
that
right, right.
wasn't necessarily extremely clear from the
Right,
text,
right,
because
right.
he had already heard, and it almost seemed like he was hearing again. I'm
Yeah,
not saying it's not there, but addressing that would have been helpful
Right,
for me.
right. Yeah, I hear you, but I don't hear you.
He hears, though.
So,
So he heard initially,
Yeah.
and then he hears again. Are we to
So-
make anything of?
so I think there is development. So there's hearing. You probably heard someone say, "This is what happened," and I think I said that. I think when he and Moses meet, there's further. So I didn't make mention of questioning. He probably wanted to know the meaning of the whole thing, and it probably would have happened for a longer time. And I think I said this, which is why I went for the learn aspect. But I take your point into making that clearer.
Yeah, so
to-
even that
to
explanation,
land.
maybe I missed it, but
Oh, right.
building off of that initial hearing,
Right,
he's hearing
right.
again.
No, I
this
take
is
that.
how
That's
I'm
good.
distinguishing
Yeah.
this. Yeah, that I could have missed it, but
No, that's my fault if you missed it.
not necessarily.
Yeah, not always.
Wes?
Yeah, so you talked about and argued of like accept and adore the living God, and I just heard a lot on the first part of accepting, the foreigners.
Yeah.
We
It
proclaim,
wasn't a lot,
but
yeah.
then the adoring part.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Romans reference, but there
Yeah, it
one-
was short, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a little imbalance in
Mm.
that.
Alexis?
Your third point was serving?
Yep.
Yeah, so I was wondering if it's more worship than serving at the last from the conference of the past.
Yeah.
I see him
Are-
watching,
are they-
I see-
Are they totally different? So I was wrestling with that because I had worship, and I was like, well, service is worship, and
Yeah,
so.
it's a slight difference also. I mean, the way that he responded.
So my problem with the text is it doesn't say like this is worship.
Yeah.
So I just labeled what it is. So it is service. So that's where I was wrestling with the two words, worship, serve, and I went for serve. Yeah.
What do you mean by service?
So
Okay.
just the sacrifice, just the sacrifices.
Oh,
And I think I said that. I could have been clearer.
yeah, okay, so I understand from.
Yeah, sorry,
So
man.
I
Sorry.
saw you.
I'll be clearer next time.
time.
It will be better next time.
So you did this twice. You just kind of like were talking about the text, and you kind of just, it's like you just leaned over and you started talking about Jesus. There was like no transition at all. It was like,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like we talked about the good news, for example,
Yeah.
it made it sound like the good news of Jesus has nothing to do with the good news that they heard.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you just started talking about the good news. So
It was abrupt, yeah.
and then your transition to the gospel of Jesus in your second point was too quick. You only need like a couple lines.
Yeah, to
like an analogy,
transition.
right?
Yeah.
As great as this news is, I know of better news that needs to be taught, or something like that, instead of
Sure,
just like,
sure.
you know,
Just straight in. Yeah,
'cause it
sure.
sounds like either Moses is teaching about Jesus,
Yeah,
or like, I don't even know why you're talking about Jesus.
yeah.
You gotta have some kind of transition. Alright, what do you think you did well? Or at least make progress on?
Yeah, just the kind of working from, I'm trying to work hard on the, again, the teach, please, move aspect, and particularly the kind of moving and pleasing, so using personal examples, but also things people are aware of, and then that kind of story at the end, which I should have said, not good news. This news.
Okay.
I was kind of trying to close the sermon with a word of warning to. So I was trying to work hard on those things.
Okay. Eric?
Sinen brother, I admired you as a preacher very highly before this sermon, and this was by far the best sermon I've ever heard you preach. Like the whole thing
Progress, bro.
held together.
Sure.
I was just like engaged the whole time. You like mixed in different illustrations at the right time. It was just a great sermon. So I mean,
Praise
would you
God.
do well? I thought the whole sermon.
Got some work on.
Yeah,
Alright,
yeah,
Jose?
I agree. I liked it. I like one of the many good things you did. It was very fluent, and I like the transition you did between point 1 and 2. You talk about being far from God, like he was far from God, but people is far from God. You know, that was good, like evolution there. And then you said, but you think, and you use a rhetorical question that was really good. You said, here's not enough. I'm glad you asked. And then you came to point to this about learning versus fighting. I liked it. That was very good.
Good.
Yeah, right. Coming off of a lecture on rhetorical tools, you use so many of them, and I think you did a lot of them well. One that I specifically was just like thought was super good was when you said, because it was emphasizing your main point so much, is like he didn't hear what Israel did, he didn't hear what this people did. No, he heard what God did, and I was like, that's good. Twice. That's why you go first.
Sorry.
I was also going to say that. It was a great section. But I'll just add on the topic of rhetorical tools, it did feel really fluid. And even just the asides that you would throw in, I feel like every time you've gone up to preach, like we feel like we know you pretty well.
Yeah.
But it's coming across more and more, just your personality, your sides, even the quick thing about your wife, just kind of humanizing you and breaking down some barriers between you and the people listening. I think you do that really well. And I thought it was really strong in this sermon.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, just the points and structure that you had, it's just simple, clear, memorable, which is good for all of us to stay on track on where you're going, and also just even for if you preached this at a church yesterday, but just audience to just like helping them see where you're getting this from the text itself too, and they see the structure.
Yeah, I see that, to Wes. I think that you take us through the whole content of the passage, to the structure, and it gone all very well. So you covered the whole passage. That's good.
I particularly like the way that you use the sons' names to kind of retell the story.
Right.
So it was this thing where it's like, it kind of seems like this thing that could just be a throwaway line in there, but you just used it to kind of contrast the very different names and the different situations that Israel and Moses in particular was in. I thought was super helpful.
Yeah, the homiletical outline has already been touched on as a strength. A subset of that was you masterfully restated the whole outline at the end in a very unique but clear way, and I was like, okay, we're landing this plane. There's a final click, and it's like cemented it. That was nice. I forget exactly what you did. You probably wrote it down.
Yeah, there was some feedback I got previously because I landed like 5 times. So I was trying to work on putting it down. Put it down.
I think you did a really good job, like introducing the where you are going to talk about, like
Right.
the foundation of your sermon by stating where's your argument, what's happening there, and everything. All of that was like really good. So I was with you, ready to follow until you came to firstborn and started. So the introduction was really good.
I mean, nobody's touched on the application yet. I thought it was very relevant. You taught to your audience, which is the leader.
Yeah.
So I think you made it pretty clear, and what someone was saying about you being you up there, it's just, I think it added more weight to those applications and calling us to do those things. But it was really helpful.
I really appreciate your consistent goal to capitalize on biblical theology, especially in your gospel connections. Yeah, and just the biblical theology of, I don't know, foreigner or sojourner
Yeah.
or exile. I mean, that was kind of the realm that you were in. And yeah, I really appreciate how you are able to do it pretty quickly. You picked a few spots in the Old Testament, connected it to Jesus.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it
Yeah.
strengthens
Yeah.
your sermon. So you did a nice job.
Yeah, I think the Simeon, I hadn't done that before Simeon, but known biblical theology. So,
Right.
so I know it, but I don't know how to use it for preaching.
Right. Yeah.
So with a new tool, you kind of get excited about it. You use it. So,
There's a promo video right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, just a question that you had in the first point of like, where were you when you heard the good news and you were staying in the
Mhm.
audience, and then sharing your own testimony, which was really good.
So I like the way you apply to all the sermon, to every point, you was applying all the time, so I was good.
Yeah, Les took mine. I did also like the point under like this kind of explanatory point and point 3, you talked about how like he just canceled all the gods who would rival the gods of the surrounding nations.
Right.
Right. It's just like it just kind of takes them out. So that was a solid like quick way of explaining like what's going on. So
thanks, gentlemen.
good job.
Thanks, brother.
It's going to be better.
Yeah.